Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordian Glory video. In today's episode we shall be casting our ever critical eye over the 10th edition Imperial Guard datasheets, and once more we step into the domain of Forge World. And if you're a fan of the Aliens movie, then this episode is for you, because we're going to be taking a look at the sentry gun of the Imperium. I am, of course, talking about the Tarantula battery. Armed with a variety of heavy weapons and available to a number of factions, the Tarantula battery is a fairly popular Forge World unit. I've seen more than a few of them in my time on the tabletop, and they've even been present at tournaments on occasion. But the big question is, are they any good in 10th edition, or are they going to spend some time on the shelf? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's fire in the hole and dive right into today's episode. As is tradition, we shall start with a brief overview of what the hell a Tarantula battery even is. In the lore, they are basically rip-offs of the alien sentry guns. The datasheet describes them as automated weapon systems, ideally suited to area denial and deterrent roles, equipped with simple logic engines and fitted with either las cannons or heavy bolters. They can cut down enemy troops or stop armored vehicle columns in their tracks, placing minimal demands on their operators' attention. Basically, the Imperium just chucks them down and goes, we don't need to worry about this area anymore, it's locked down. But how does that translate onto the tabletop? Can they form a bastion, a ring of steel, or are they just a bit of extra firepower? Well, to find out, we need to dive into their datasheet, and we'll begin with that stat line. They have a movement value of dash. That means they cannot move. And before anyone says, but Mordian, you can tell them to move, and then they can move 3 inches. Nope. Very specifically says in the rules commentary that if you have a movement value of dash, that you cannot move under any circumstances. And no, that doesn't mean you can charge them. That still counts as moving. When the tarantulas are locked down, they are down. They cannot move for any reason whatsoever. They are toughness 5 with a 3+ save and 4 wounds. This makes them surprisingly tanky. The majority of small arms in the game are going to be wounding them on 5s. There's a big difference between T5 and T4. The 3+ save means that if you deploy them into some cover, that even if the enemy hits them with some middling firepower back, you're still probably going to have that 3+ save. Heavy bolters aren't going to be too happy about them. And 4 wounds means that it's going to take more than a few bolter shots to get rid of them. Overall, I would describe them as surprisingly, annoyingly durable. If someone hits them with a las cannon or a crack rocket or any sort of anti-vehicle weapon, they're going to go down. But if someone hits them with a heavy bolter or even an autocannon, it's going to take more than that to take out in one go. It takes 2 autocannon shots to kill one of these things. 4 wounds is quite tasty. They are leadership 7, that's standard in the guard, and unfortunately, they are only objective control 0. Now, the reason I say unfortunately is because if they just had OC 1, just 1 OC, they would be a brilliant unit. They'd be top tier. I'd say they'd be S tier, because you just take one of them, stick it on your home field objective and be like, yep, that's mine. But with OC 0, sadly, that is not possible. But overall, not to focus on the negative, sure, they're a bit static and they haven't got any OC, but they are durable, and when you're looking at a defensive unit, that's probably the most important stats to have. But the best defense is a good offense, and that's where the weapons come in. Now, each unit can consist of between 1 to 3 Tarantula sentry guns. Each one of those guns, as standard, comes with a twin heavy bolter and a close combat weapon. Any number of models can have their twin heavy bolter replaced with a twin las cannon. So you could take a mixture of them. You could take a unit of 3 with all heavy bolters or all las cannons, or you could have a couple of heavy bolters or a couple of las cannons. You can mix and match how you want the weapons to be in the squad, which is quite nice. Now, those weapon systems are a little bit different to your standard issue ones in the Guard. It's not uncommon to have heavy bolters and las cannons in your force. And in terms of their basic stat line, these weapons look fairly familiar. You've got sustained hits 1, you've got a 36-inch range, 3 attacks, ballistic skill 4+, strength 5, AP -1, 2 damage on the heavy bolter. And on the las cannon, you've got a 48-inch range, 1 attack, ballistic skill 4+, strength 12, AP -3, D6 +1 damage. What's really big about this though is that they're twin linked. Just off the top of my head, I can't actually think of a lot of twin-linked heavy bolters or twin-linked las cannons that you get in the Guard. Armor Sentinels can kind of get twin-linked las cannons, pseudo twin-linked with their hunter-killer ability, but by and large, these are some of the only twin-linked heavy bolters and las cannons that you get. Now, that doesn't suddenly make them god tier, it just makes them interesting. It means that if you have a Tarantula with a twin-linked las cannon, when you go to shoot at an enemy vehicle, not only can you deal with most enemy armor that's going to be T11 and below, what you'd call like medium tanks, like the Lehman Russ, the Predator, that stuff, but also when you start getting into the heavier vehicles, like the Dawn, like the Repulsor, things that are toughness 12, suddenly it's not so swingy when you're relying on that 4+. And we are in a meta right now where vehicles are very prevalent, and people are taking quite a lot of heavy vehicles. Imperial Knights, whilst not as popular on the meta scene, are still a thing. And every tournament I've ever been to, there's always at least one person that's taken them because it's such an easy army to build for events. You still got to have that formula in your head of, can my army kill an Imperial Knight a turn? If yes, your list is good. If no, it's not. They're still the gatekeepers. Attention, Guardsmen! This is an announcement by the Departamento Militarum. Element Games is an official sponsor of the Mordianglory channel. They offer up to 20% off Warhammer 40k and 10% off full action and other game systems. Use the link down in the description to save money and support the channel. Anyone not using the link will be referred to the local commissariat. Also, don't forget that if you use referral code TIM3921, then you will receive double store credit, saving even more money on your future purchases. That's all for now. Fallout! It might seem like the twin las cannon is the default way to go, but I wouldn't overlook the heavy bolter. On the one hand, it does have 3 shots. And bear in mind that Tarantula's hitting on ballistic skill 4+, and unless you want to expend one of your very valuable Lord Solar orders, these guys won't be hitting on a 3+, because they might be a vehicle, but they are not squadron. So they can't receive orders from tank commanders, they can't receive orders from platoon commanders or any other sort of infantry officer. So the only way these guys get orders is with the Lord Solar. Now, if you build around Tarantula spam, maybe these guys will be hitting on 3s, at which point the las cannon's great. But I think in the vast majority of lists that include these, you're looking at the fact that they're going to have to be independent. And in that case, you're probably going to want to go for the heavy bolter, because you'd rather have 3 shots hitting on 4s, so you actually get some hits in, rather than 1 shot that might just miss every turn. Also, the heavy bolter pairs nicely with the ability of the Tarantula, which is sentry programming. This allows you to target the Tarantula battery with the fire overwatch stratagem for 0 CP. And you can do so even if you've already used that stratagem on a different unit this phase. Obviously, trying to overwatch with a twin link las cannon, it's 1 shot hit on a 6. It's still overwatch at the end of the day. It doesn't suddenly magically make the Tarantulas hit on 4s. The heavy bolter has a better chance of getting that hit in. And if you take a big unit of Tarantulas, take like 3 of them, then that's 9 shots. That is likely that you're going to get 1 of those hits. And if you get 1 hit, then it's a sustained hit, then you get 2 hits. So it works well with sentry programming. Little side note here, even with the recent balance patch, which has affected some of the free stratagems, the Tarantula still gets to use Overwatch for free because it specifically names the fire Overwatch stratagem. And what's kind of cool is you could target the Tarantula batteries, if you take more than 1, with Overwatch, because you could go, right, 0 CP on Tarantula battery, that gets Overwatch. Oh, I've got another battery of them. I've already used this phase, but that's okay. Sentry programming allows me to do it again. So you can have multiple Tarantula batteries getting free Overwatch over the course of a turn. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mordian, this is all mildly interesting, but there's not really much here, right? This thing has some heavy weapons, but this is the Guard. We've got plenty of those. I got las cannons and heavy bolters going up my arsehole. Sentry programming is nice, but the fact that they still hit on 6 is a bit of a missed opportunity. And I agree with you. I think if sentry programming allowed them to hit on 4s, it would take this unit from being whatever to quite spicy. But I wouldn't disregard the Tarantula battery yet. I think with a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking, it can go from being shelf tier to being acceptable in a semi-competitive or fun list. And this comes down to the points costs. You see, they only cost 40 points each. That's a bit of a bargain, frankly. One of the cheapest ways of getting a heavy weapon into your army. In fact, if you get to the end of your army list and you've got 40 points left over, you could do a lot worse than putting a Tarantula sentry gun in. You could mess around by putting like, oh, I'll just chuck in a Preacher for whatever reason, or oh, I'll just chuck in a Commissar for whatever reason. No, why do that? Those units aren't going to add anything to your army. Stick a Tarantula in. It might actually do some damage. Now, I will say that obviously there's a bit of competition for this last unit that you chuck into the list category. The Rapier Laser Destroyer can do the same thing. It can eat up some last points, and that is mobile and stuff. So bear in mind that Tarantula is a good option, but the Rapier also is a good option. But there is one thing that the Tarantula battery can do that the Rapier can't, and that is roadblock, speed bump, area denial. At the end of the day, these things are vehicles. Your opponent can't move over them. And so what that means is you could have them in front of your army and use them as almost like a pseudo Aegis defense line. The main reason you take the ADL is not because it gives you like invulnerable saves or cover or anything like that. No, screw all that. Doesn't mean anything. The main reason you take it is because your opponent has to chew through it to get to the stuff behind, especially if they're a combat army. So wouldn't it be nice if your Aegis defense line could actually do damage to the opponent, if it wasn't just a wall? That's what the Tarantula can do. With 3 las cannons or 3 heavy bolters, they can put out a respectable amount of firepower. You can overwatch with them for free, and you can put some infantry behind. And the next time those Khorne Berserkers come wailing into your lines, you're like, oh, sorry, you've got to get through my Tarantulas before you get to the infantry. It's cheaper, just as effective, and can do damage. So to add all of this up, I think the Tarantula battery is an interesting unit. It's fairly cheap, so you can chuck one in your list if you've got some spare points, and maybe there is some potential there for them to act as a wall. But overall, I would say that they are a fun unit. They are something that you can chuck into your friendly games with your mates, and they'll probably do all right. I don't think they're top tier. I don't think that they're going to suddenly start storming the meta, but I think they're just effective enough that if you own a few, you can put them in your list and not feel like you're totally handicapping yourself when you're playing with your mates down in the basement. But that's just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you think the Tarantula has merit, or would you go with the Rapier every single time? And what about that pseudo Aegis defense line tactic? Any merit there, or just pie in the sky? If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure you smash that like button and, of course, subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the Call of Duty. So a massive thank you to Bon Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, August Vardy, and the Tommies. Thank you guys, your incredible support makes a huge difference and it is a big part of how I'm able to do Mordy and Glory full time. But that's all for now, thank you for watching and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.